I welcome you to this week's edition of Inter-University Debate, where university students are able to discuss different topics and especially matters that affect this country. On this week's edition, I'm joined by a panel of two gentlemen and one lady. You're welcome to the Inter-University Debate.
Thank you.
I'm your host for the Inter-University Debate. My name is Fancy Jendalake. I'm a tax consultant and a lawyer. Now, this week's edition, we are looking at gender mainstreaming, success and challenges in the current context. Now, when we talk about gender mainstreaming, I know it rings a bell because this is something that our forefathers have fought for and the current generation is still fighting for. Now, internationally, gender mainstreaming, it is a strategy that brings about equality between men and women. Different countries have developed different strategies to ensure the achievement of gender mainstreaming. The international community, international organizations have put gender mainstreaming, especially the UN, has put gender mainstreaming at the forefront. Here in Uganda, several policies have been adopted to ensure gender mainstreaming. Now, this has registered several successes, but amidst the different successes that have been achieved, there are also challenges. Several questions have arisen. The strategy that the government of Uganda especially has come up with to ensure gender mainstreaming, does it still work in the current context? One question to be asked. Secondly, the reason for bringing in place affirmative action, has it been achieved? The affirmative action strategy, does it still work in the current context? We will look at that and several other issues when we delve into the debate. Now, let me introduce the panelists for today. I'll start with the gentleman sitting next to me. He is very familiar to the Inter-University Debate, has been on this panel several times, represented his university during Inter-University Debates, and that is Mr. Brian Aruho from Canvendish University. Brian, you're welcome back to the show.
Welcome back, but it's an honor. Thank you so much for inviting me. And I'm also very honored again to have my mentor here for the record.
Okay, so the only lady on the panel as we discuss gender mainstreaming, that is Miss Nassonko Veronica from Nkumba University. Veronica, you're welcome back to the show as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. We also have from Makerere University, I know he has been on the Youth Roundtable discussing very serious issues, and that is Mr. Muhwezi Lawel. Lawel, you're welcome to the Inter-University Debate.
Thank you so much. I am happy to have my debut today. I hope it's a beginning of a great story. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much, Lawel. We are happy to have you for the Inter-University Debate.
You're welcome.
Okay, so we are starting with Mr. Brian Aruho. So, Brian, talking about gender mainstreaming, and as earlier I defined it, feel free to give it your own definition or context. When I introduced it, I defined it as a strategy to bring about equality between men and women. Now, my first question is that what is the current status in Uganda? Where has Uganda reached with that strategy?
Okay, well, I think we haven't yet reached where we really want to be because we have differences in ideologies, differences in thinking. And because when you're looking at gender mainstreaming, that's again, as you said, it's looking at equality. Whereas, yes, some people may want to look at it as that. Other people may look at it from their own context. That's in the context of saying maybe I'm misogynistic or I'm a feminist, and tend to get out of context. For example, under BGF, there is the Uganda Women's Network. I think you remember it. Uganda Women's Network started out, personally, to my interpretation, started out as a forum that looked at empowering women, not only the older class of women and also the youth, the females. But with the involvement over time, now it came into something that became a very ambiguous ambition. That is more of looking at females as the top tier of the society. Now, which took away the whole thing of, let's work together for equal spaces. That was in their, in their context. So maybe so far we could say we're on 80-40, the 40 being the males, because we could say the percentages are really going down because now more attention has been put to the female side. So to break it down, we are really on an 80-20. Could be there 80 females, then 20 males.
That is in which space, Brian?
Well,
generally gender mainstreaming, or in which space specifically? Because we are going to have a discussion on different contexts, leadership, politically, economic space, that also has something to do with financial, the social aspect, cultural aspect. The 80-20, where does it
the
feature?
80-20, okay. Let me break it down. The 80-20 can also be vice versa. Yeah. If we are looking at maybe political leadership or something, yeah, people will be like, no, but the males have taken over. The males, the males are everywhere. But you're only looking at 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people. No. But because they are very loud, our gender really does a lot of talking. Because they are very loud, they are there, they're ambitious, they're doing funny things. You've seen them in newspapers, on TV. It's usually the names that you see, Aruho, what, those names, yes?
What is the position of statistics in your submission?
The position of statistics is that we have around 5% of males let's look at the political class. We have around 5% of males that have reached up there and are looking, the basis is that people are looking at that 5% to represent the whole general scope of men, whereas the other percentage is actually locked out. So, but when you come to that space of let's say civic spaces, environments, NGOs, things like that, civil societies, now it becomes the other vice versa, the women actually taking lead, which to me is good.
Okay, I have so many questions for Brian on his submission, but let's first push on. Let me move to Veronica. So, Veronica, historically, on issues of gender mainstreaming, take us probably through the history, and we see from where we are coming from to where we have reached. How are we faring as Uganda?
In Uganda, particularly.
Yeah, particularly Uganda, when it comes to gender mainstreaming.
When it comes to gender mainstreaming, before, okay, I can talk about the colonial period. In the colonial period, not even before the colonial period, women were known to be, I should term it as, were known to be as house materials, like you're part of the house. As you see in a house, there are plates, cups. Women were also
Objects.
House objects. Yeah, thank you. They are house objects. You couldn't go past the house, right? Garden, well, kitchen, that is all. So if you were seen outside, maybe in the village meetings and in elderly meetings, you could be chased out. That would be an abomination. But then again, people always talk bad about colonialism, that colonialists, they did this. But however, they opened our eyes that, okay, women, you deserve this. So basically, colonialism came, then women, we started getting hope that, okay, let us come up. We came up, and then we had those who were able to get exposed to the outer world, and the very few women who stood up and told us that women, okay, you have to be equal to men. However, it was all good. It was all good. The 1960s, the 1980s, 1970s, it was all good. So the problem comes with that in the 2000s. It was all good. In the 2000s up to around 2007, there was still not exactly good gender equality, but I think everything was going on good. So the formation of different groups, organization for gender equality and all the stuff. But however, we come currently, that is between, I think I should say that is between 2019 to date. I think we have now lost it. We have now lost the objective of gender equality. We have lost the objective of gender mainstreaming. Why? As you see from that period, the enactment of the different laws, one law may be enacted supporting exactly women, and then another law may be enacted supporting exactly men. But then the objective of gender mainstreaming is to consider both, to consider the men and the women before enacting something. So I think currently we have lost the objective of gender mainstreaming. However, we had it before. I think I've answered it.
Okay, that's thank you, Veronica, for that. So let me just ask something a little more there. So your perspective is that initially the objective of gender mainstreaming was to bring about equality to both men and women.
Yes, that is the objective. Okay, women, we want to step up and be, but we do not want to surpass the men. That is the problem. We do not want to exceed the men.
What statistic? Because
Oh, okay, what I mean to say, it has to be 50-50, that men 50 and women 50. But it doesn't have to go like, if men are 50, us, we have to go beyond that. It has to be gender equality. So we have to be equal. However, it has come up that some,
must.
okay,
Must.
most people want to go beyond it. And that is what
But is it bad? Men were beyond for a long
No,
period
no,
of
no.
time. Is it bad to for women to step up and this time go beyond the 50-50?
Then the oppressed is also becoming the oppressor, because we fought to gender. We wanted gender equality. We want to be equal to men. We want to be equal. Now we have got there. Now we are like, we want to be more than men. We want to be. So I think
You want to be the alphas.
Okay. Brian, do you have something to add? I saw your hand movements.
You see, the whole context is funny. Yes, what she said is true. But the part where she said some, I think some is the problem. Because now, when you look at most of the women that have taken up these spaces, it's no longer about the equality. Personally, I don't know what Lawel thinks about it. I've already seen that it's not good. But personally, I feel that the women now who have made it there, she has exploded herself. They are now looking at the perspective of, I can do without the other gender, which is, to me, is a very wrong mindset, because equally men cannot do without females. Same way females can do without men. There is something called cooperation.
So what you're hoping for is a 50-50.
Yes. Okay, it's just a hope of 50-50. Realistically, it can never happen.
Okay. So let me bring Lawel into the discussion. So Lawel, from a different angle, as we have heard from Veronica and Brian as well, Uganda itself has been trying to implement gender mainstreaming. What are some of the policies that government has come up with to ensure gender mainstreaming?
Okay, maybe before I come to that, there is something common in their submissions, and I've also seen it on social media, especially on Women's Day. So it doesn't matter what that truth is, but it seems as though there is starting to be an impression that women, that is a faction of maybe feminists or people who champion the women cause, that have sort of gotten off track and are not seeking just to have equality, but seek to chase superiority. Of course, your question is valid. I just wanted to take note of that trend, because that informs whether policy, whether approach, whether there is need for flexibility. But it's something that I've really noticed. I don't know what it means, but it is something I've really noticed. Not just
that
here,
but
generally.
Superiority.
The impression now, people seem not even to discuss the success stories. There seems to be like this general feeling of we are no longer on track, and it's even among us, the ladies, as you've seen. But maybe just to respond to the question, I think gender mainstreaming, my biggest interaction with it has been largely maybe at the workplace, in big institutions, of how do you have both women and men maybe being equally present at the workplace, or even in big institutions. Maybe in the political sense would be these policies of a special seat for women representation at local councils and parliament. That's like the most visible, but maybe you could talk about the incentives to stay in schools, such as 1.5 bonus. Not bonus, I don't know what it's called, but 1.5 given to
additional points
given to women while going to university. Those are some, I think, of the policies and strategies that have been put in place to ensure gender equality. Now, of course, there are many discussions about what is equality in the first place, and at what point do we say that we have really achieved it? One of the biggest problems we have is there is always a problem and we come up with an immediate solution, but then we don't thoroughly examine that solution up to its end. What is it going to look like in the end? What are its consequences? What does it look like in its final stages? And that's why there's always going to be a discussion of at what point do we say we have equality, or at what, so what people who do projects is something called performance indicators. What are the indicators of success? When do the beneficiaries feel that they have arrived at the position where they ought to be at? At what point do you find women saying, look, I think we are now at a point of comfort? Because also as human beings is when there is interest. And so if you are likely to get somewhere because of the presence of that affirmative action policy, then I don't think anyone is willing to kick the ladder off, because people are always willing to take the affirmative action part because it's easy for them. But doing just contextual, just to add on what he said, I think it is true that there's a time when women were not at equal footing with men in terms of access to education and even normal societal privileges, like she has said. And so at that point, it was really necessary to sort of break that barrier. Of course, maybe this discussion is going to expand beyond Uganda, but there's an explanation of how we got to that I don't know if it's a civilization of sorts, of why women need to get out of the kitchen and also get into workspaces. And I think now it has really, really improved. Yeah. When you look at at graduations, you have more females graduating than men. At Makerere University, you have more women accessing workspaces. Have the women become 50-50? I think not. But has gender mainstreaming or the policies achieved to the extent that women now contribute to society more? I think yes. Then the discussion again is going to go back to at what point do we say that this affirmative action is no longer fair? Like he says, maybe his percentages are exaggerated, but at what yes, but at what point does Brian stop feeling that it is unfair for him to get 18 and a lady who is also in a similar institution or a better institution gets 18, but he has less chance than the guy? At what point does that conversation start? Do we wait for every lady in every region of the country to first get to the university? Because you have ladies in certain regions who are already emancipated. So how do you balance that too? Because there are ladies who are born in central Uganda who go to the good schools who are always benefiting. If you are going to say that you're going to wait for every lady wherever they are to first get the necessary capacity, it means you'll have a faction of ladies who are doing extremely well, better than the gentlemen.
So, Lawel, do you think that's a discussion that should have taken place at the initiation of affirmative action?
Yes, and I don't think it's just for gender mainstreaming. I think it's the discussions on all affirmative action, whether it's minorities, whether it's blacks, races, minority ethnics, and what not. I think we always want to ignore. We just get the easy response and don't discuss the end of it. I think we need to have that discussion, because you can get the feeling now.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Are you done, Lawel?
Yes.
Okay. Let me come back to Brian. So, Brian, do you think when I was listening to Lawel, it seems in certain aspects we are still not there when it comes to gender mainstreaming, especially bringing women at the same level with men. My question to you is, do you think the government, specifically of Uganda, has done enough to ensure that there is gender mainstreaming at every level and in all aspects?
Gender mainstreaming of all genders, I don't think so.
No, in all aspects.
In all aspects.
Yes.
One, let's start with the education aspect, I think. way before, if you look at Uganda, way before, I think the whole 0.2, as you said, has come of late. That's I think we are looking at around 2013. I think that's when the points came. 2013, 2015, around there. If my mind is to recall, because then now you're looking at the previous government where if I got 9 and she got 9, it was 9 would move. But I think now they looked more at empowering. That's why I can say I can support the government on that part. Because, well, they are looking at gender mainstreaming, yes, because for a long period of time, the males have been there. The males have taken up because, there was this whole dogma kind of thinking way back that if I have 2 children, I have a boy and I have a girl, I would rather educate the boy because I know he has more chances of success compared to the girl. I will trade off the girl, as you said, as an object. I'll trade her off, they'll give me what they've given me and life moves on. So I wasn't looking at her. But now government, I think, said, you know what, let's first develop the whole education sector because it's through there that you create the sensitization, the empowerment that now leads to the whole, mainstreaming. You bring up people who can actually debate, people who can, participate, people who can help bring about change, development in every aspect. Now that cuts across socio-economic and political. So when they brought about the entry points to university, now you had more people now saying, oh, well, yes, secondary is hard, but let me pass through. You never know, I have that 0.2 added to me, I can get to university. And when you get to university now, because of, as you were saying, the 0.2 has helped them. You're having now going politically in parliament, now you have women MPs, because you cannot contest as a male MP. I'm meaning like saying woman MP of Ntungamo district.
The woman representative.
Yes. Now you cannot come as male representative. No. At least there is something, whether the respective people have taken it to help, with the needed streamlining is a question for another day. But whether it has been put there, it has been put there. Now the burden comes back to them, whether to use it to uplift more people or, to stay there stagnant. Because, when most of them reach there, it now becomes like, how should I say, household property. A person now feels this is my territory. You come within it, I can, how Uganda runs. But as to whether government has done, I think politically, yes, because of, as you were saying, you can go to the sub-counties, there are positions which are specifically from, there is, about Secretary of Female Affairs, you cannot get Secretary of Male Affairs, no. Secretary, because I know, if you're in a race, say, chairperson LC5, out of 5 contestants, you'd find 3 are male. It's bit, or even all the 5 can be, but at least there is Secretary of Female Affairs. There is a space for them in everything. Politically, I think they are trying. Educationally, the 0.2. Socially, we could say through partnerships with the civil society organizations, I think, well, they're picking up. I like the pace. I honestly like the pace they're looking at, because if you look at, I think later on in the conversation we shall go to the national level, to the international level. If you're just looking at the government, I think for the previous 20 years, something has been done, honestly.
Okay.
I just feel something has been done.
So you feel right. Government has done enough
yes, in its capacity on the female side. Yeah.
Okay. So let me push that to Veronica as well. So Brian thinks government has done enough when it comes to pushing for gender mainstreaming. So what is your perspective on that?
I also agree. I think the government has done enough
to ensure gender mainstreaming.
Yeah, because there are 2 issues. There is, how should I bring it? There is the theory part and the practical part. So theoretically, the government has done enough. Theoretically, the government has done enough. You read books, you read laws, you read news articles. The government has really fought to bring what? Gender equality. However, now let us look at the practical part of it. It has not done enough. Like, implementation of what is in the theoretical part is not enough. Okay, apart from us who have been lucky to come to school, and I hope we drive to this thing. You are looking at us who are in school. Let us look at some village girl in some village there who doesn't know that, okay, there are some girls who are still being sold.
Yes, as well as men, as well as boy child. for clarity, as well as the boys.
But Brian, what is the statistics when it comes to that? Let's look at the statistics.
Anyway, let's finish.
Okay.
So you see, the practical part, apart from us who you see at campus and say, okay, girls, they have done enough for you. Let us look at some girl, some lady there in the village who doesn't even know that I, as a woman, I have a right to stand up for this. So the government has not done anything to implement and educate these women there in the villages that, you know what, you also have rights. You can't be sold. When you go to the villages, like during the festive season, I went back to the village where my paternal village and Zimbabwe there. So when I went there, I found little girls, like young girls. Okay, not, I could say they were like 16 years. So these girls were 16 years and they were preparing their wedding. And they were so excited that they were going to their marriage homes. And you could wonder, and they didn't know that, okay, 16, I'm still underage, I'm not yet at the age of marriage in Uganda. But they were happy. And the fathers were also ready to get the bride. Because, you know, in our village there, it is the father who describes that according to my daughter, she's told she's exactly what you want. So you bring this and this number of what? Of cows and the stuff. So still there in the villages, a girl is treated as a commodity. And these places have representatives in the parliament, they have representatives everywhere, and they have not done anything to implement. As long as these people get into their seats, I'll build roads, I'll do what? I'll make sure in Zimbabwe, I'll make sure your cows don't get sick and stuff.
You're talking about shirts in particular, right? the MP.
you know. So now they have not these. Okay, let us not talk. Okay, when we say government, sometimes I mean the executive and the judiciary. But then we talk about these MPs, these LCs. These people know what is in the law. Some of them know it. They have not implemented what is in the law. As an MP of an area, you see a girl is being sold to a man underage. Why don't you stick up? Some of them even just go as guest of honor, and they are happy. I beg to submit.
Yes, I see Brian has something to say.
Okay, fine. Her submission count. Anyway, it's one thing doing something. You can. If we're in a society, I don't want to bring this out in a rude way, but it doesn't look rude. If we're in a society and Lawel sets up a school, says this is the school, you guys can come and study, whether there is a cost or there is no cost. I don't want to break into that. But if Lawel brings the school and says, guys, come and study, do you expect him to come now to your home like gender, come, Chamboso me? Otherwise, I'll kill you.
Okay, but Brian, okay, there is also this question when it comes to implementation. If you've put in place laws and policies, shouldn't you ensure its implementation up to the grassroots?
I'm coming to that. That's why I brought about the school thing. Lawel is going to establish the school, right? He said, I'm going to help you guys get services, theoretically. He has bought the school. I think now that's practical. But now, whether it's him to come and force you when you have the goods next to you, I think that's a personal initiative. Now, let's get to parliament, where before we never had women MPs, you know that. Now you have women MPs. You have secretaries of female affairs. It's now out of theory. There is a practical position. Now, whether the leaders, the female leaders, have used those positions to empower, to sensitize the masses, especially the agenda, I think now that's how do they call it? That's a downgrade on their side. Because I think practically, given the fact that you go and vote for your woman member of parliament, I think that's already something you're already holding. That is something practical. It's not you. I'm not going to sit there. Let me say I'm called Chom Hendo Susan. I'm sitting there. I'm like, no, Nabi Ulidako. No. You know there is a woman member of parliament. So you will go there. You will cast your vote. You're going to wake up. You're going to store it. You're going to go there and vote. That is practical. Now, whether that MP goes there, that woman MP goes there, and among the many duties that MPs do, she also comes up and then comes back to the village, as she said to Zimbabwe, and tells these people, look, you cannot allow a girl below 18 years to get married. She brings about this, she brings these civil society organizations down. They empower these children. She brings government on table, meaning, the actual government. That is that is a downgrade of the person you're put into power. I think there must be a difference between whether government has done or the leaders have not done. Political leaders, tend to be funny usually.
Okay, yes, Brian. Thank you for that. Now, my question is, there has been, there are laws in place. To start with, a girl cannot get married and found a family unless there is the age limit of 18 that is in place. Now, my issue is, has the government gone and seen the implementation? Have they evaluated and ensured that there is implementation of the laws that have been put in place for gender mainstreaming? Not even just that. We have the issue on the land ownership, which later on we are going to look at it. But has the implementation, my issue is implementation, which she brought out, of the different laws that have been put in place to ensure gender mainstreaming. Has there been an enforcement at the grassroots level?
But just to be fair to him,
Yeah.
I think there's because if gender mainstreaming also largely looks at some of the strategies really is to have women in positions,
Yes.
just like men, and just to help the balance, especially in terms of representation, for example, in parliament, they found it important that there should be maybe sort of quota, like a space for women members of parliament. So the question is asking, to what extent can we hold government accountable? What do we expect of government? Because if you are saying that you want women in leadership, and what he's saying that what government can do then is create a space for women, and it's created that special seat. Now, do we then continue to blame government when those women are inefficient? For example, it might be true that 70%, even majority of women members of parliament don't represent women issues. There have been people who practice in family law, how it has been complicated to pass maybe
The
divorce.
marriage and divorce bill.
Exactly. That you even have majority of women members of parliament not debating it, not even being pro it. And so it's highly possible, like he's arguing, that that women have been given this space, this political space, and from what she's saying, they are not performing. To that extent, why don't we then also hold those women accountable? Because the assumption maybe was that women would best represent the interest of the women. And that is why we are saying, no, let us have a special seat for the women. But these women are not doing their best. At that point, I think that, I don't know if I represent him right, that we need to hold those women leaders accountable when they don't represent women issues and not government per se. I think the discussion on implementation of other women emancipation or women inclusivity policies is true for you. It's a different discussion. But on this analysis of gender mainstreaming, can we also get to examine the efficiency of those policies? We have agreed that women would best represent women interests in parliament and create a special seat. And those women have not represented those interests. Can we then say that maybe that particular strategy has not yielded or is not sufficient? Can we re-examine it or something like that?
Maybe just a little bit.
Okay, Brian.
Just adding a little. You see, in ancient societies, history, you're very good at history as well as Lawel. You know that most of the warriors in ancient history were men, right? The armies were majorly made of men. Well, it's because whenever this guy was there, if Lawel was my dad and he was a warrior, highest probability would be that he would train me to be one, right? He would, even if I wanted it, even if I didn't want, he would push me to be one, because then it was tough. Yes, maybe let's just get it from history. Now you had the women then, because then trust me, you wouldn't be in the army. Apart from the movies that are trying to show other parts of history, real things during the time of Napoleon, Alexander the Great, looking at all those things. Yes, you had men being warriors, fighting, because for them they were used majorly. We could assume that they were used to hardships. So they would get a young dude, put that instinct in them that, look, your visitors on earth, at any one point you can die, but you need to die with a purpose. So for them, they're always pushing. Now, then you bring them, Yes, because the backbone of the society, you know, they also did their duties the way they did them. I don't want to delve into that, you know. Then now you come evolving over time. Yes, you come evolving over time. When they got into that teaching space, that whole educational sector, regardless of countries, okay, apart from some countries that say like Afghanistan, which are special. When you see the education sector, now they came out, they were doing more of the empowering. So you'd find if she was a teacher, highest probability her daughter would be a teacher. Highest probability, because you know they started bringing them up on board. Now, coming to the current context, now the armies now have women, men, you know, things like that happening. But now you're looking at a position, as I was saying, there is a political position. Now, this woman is there, she's a woman MP, she has failed to do the list of just sensitizing her, you know, her gender. Majorly, that I'm not looking at her age mates, because those ones, you know, some of them have made it. I'm now looking at the people who are below 30. That's because that's a very critical stage. She has failed to bring civil society organizations on ground and say, look, kindly help me, and kindly help me. I'm on my knees, sensitize these people that, look, marriage below 18 years is bad. Just help me come and tell these people, kindly go to school. You know, because when you go to school, that's when you're going to open up. That's when these opportunities are going to come. Because when you go to primary, you move to O level, highest probability you might get interested in debate. Through debate, your mind opens. Proceed to A level, you know, you study a number of things, your mind will, you know, generate a number of things. So if she brings them in, that will help. But now, you know, they have failed to do that. And what's the excuse at the end of the day? Government that we are, all the men are doing this. But you're there, you have the office, you're the woman MP of this area. And even on top of just failing to develop them, you even fail to develop 3, 5, 6, 10 women who maybe you might say, I think they can take over the leadership. They can take over the woman MPship and then help. You want to be at the helm, 5, 10, 15 years, you're the woman MP of the area, and your area still has, you know, rampant issues. There is rape cases which go unanswered, environment cases which go unanswered, child marriages which go unanswered, things like that. It becomes funny. So whether government has done the practical bit of saying, guys, here are the laws, yes, it has done. Whether the leaders that have been put in to enforce laws has been done, that hasn't been done.
Okay, let me bring Veronica. You earlier had something to say.
I want to correct this too. You see, okay, yeah, you give us the seat and we take that seat. But it's like giving a 9-month-old boy a ball and you don't tell that person what the use of that ball. You don't tell that boy that, okay, you have to kick this ball. So what I'm driving at is this. Yes, the government has done the practical part halfway, no, in fact, a quarter.
The vice president is female.
First, listen to
Okay,
me. So now, so they have done their part, but then here is the thing: you have given us the seat. I think the general notion is that when someone is voted into that seat, as people know the purposes of MP, as you know, and by the way, I'm not giving this argument from a point of view of urban centers. I'm basing on rural centers. So when someone is voted into this seat, all they know is I'm building roads, reconstructing the school toilet. We have the offices, the police stations. That is what they know. So I think to make it more practical, however expensive it may be, I think when these people are voted into seats, the government should put these people on a table, these women specifically, and tell them, you know what, okay, you're in these seats, but the work of building roads and reconstructing areas, leave it for the MP. Your work as a woman representative, you have to represent the women in your area. Do not come to go to parliament and tell us this and tell us this as women. Woman representative, it means you go back there and talk to these women, do this, do that. It doesn't mean come to parliament and shout, we women of this area need this. It also means going down there and teaching them that. So the government also needs to outline for these people, you have this seat, but this is how you should use this seat. That is what I mean by implementing.
Okay.
But when you're running for MPship, you know the duties of an MP.
I'm talking about the rural. I'm talking about the rural area. That
No,
those
no,
people
I'm
just know
I'm
that.
just saying the person running for the office. The person running for the office.
Okay, let's shift the discussion, and I'll start with Lawel. So let's talk about the policies. I know we actually started discussing this already, the policies that were put in place, especially affirmative action. My question to you is, in this 21st century, in 2023 specifically, do you think the policies still work? The policies, especially affirmative action?
Well, I think they work because because the goal largely is to promote inclusivity, to bring women to spaces which they were historically unable to occupy. And so I think to the extent that you still have 1.5 added on your, for example, senior 6, it means you're more likely to have more women getting to university. If you have those because you have like boards where they require you to have a particular percentage of women on your governing board or institutional structure, I think they still work. They really work. Even if it is positions at local council, I think they still work. So I think efficient, yes. Do they enable women? Yes. Are they the only? Are they on themselves enough? I think no. I think we also need to focus more on, I think, reminding the women or even the entire proponents of the cause what the goal was, and that the goal was not just to have women in spaces, it was to have those women, influence those spaces to work for the fellow, for whoever they are representing. I mean, when you look at parliament, you don't get the spirit of, you don't have the female caucus being strong, and you don't feel that the women members of parliament have a strong, united spirit on women issues. You get more women emancipation energy in ONET, in FAWODE. You would expect the same maybe from women members of parliament. I don't understand how a woman would go on that affirmative action ticket after 5 years and has not advanced any women enabling policy or law. I just don't get it. And so, of course, they work, but they on themselves are not, the presence of those positions is not sufficient if these individuals are not reminded why they are there in the first place. And I can tell you certainly that those, especially women in leadership, has not really operated to its maximum. But also, even the girl child, I don't think they are being told enough. I don't like it when the girl child women feel like they need to be constantly pushed, that things need to be given to them. Whereas there is a realization by every stakeholder that women were disadvantaged and need to be emancipated, it is also important for the women to also understand that the world is hard and tough, and they need to toughen up, and they need to defeat the tides of life. And it's not enough for you to keep saying they gave us this seat, but they didn't tell us what to use with it. Like, life is not that easy. And if you continue having those policies and the girl child is not told on their own to be competent, to understand that the world, for example, of private organizations is about merit, I think that will not help. I can tell you certainly that no business person is willing to employ a woman just because they would look well on the outside, the optics, the gender card is sufficient. They want an efficient lady. And so also the girl child, and I pick it from how she's saying it, like, they need to understand that the world is tough and they need to work on themselves. If there are those government incentive structures that exist, well and good, but they on themselves, if you tell your girl if she goes to school, she needs to work extra hard, like anyone, because the world is competitive and tough. Okay. And I think that message is not out there. And then feminists and most of, we are telling our girls that men are the problem and that patriarchy is why you're not there. But they also need to tell them that even without patriarchy, life is tough for even the boy, for anyone who is trying to make money. It's tough for of course, I'm not downplaying the structural patriarchal challenges, but even for women who have got education, like, the street is harsh. Like, you need to work so hard as a woman as well, and don't continue thinking that the challenges you face are only because of an external cause. And I feel that the gender mainstreaming directorates in universities and the Ministry of Labor and all stakeholders, gender and labor, are not also doing that. Yeah. You don't feel it. You get you look at some of the ladies that are celebrated for what they have done, and it's not really outstanding. It's not an innovation. It's just they maybe pulled a placard. They are appearing more on TV. Their tweets. They're playing victim, and they get celebrated. And we are not celebrating the women, for example, who are in STEM subjects, who are performing well in mathematics, which has for long been a problem. We are not like getting women who are like really innovative. Like, those are not the girls we are celebrating, and it's because it's easier for us to continue to say that men are the problem or government is not doing enough, but that won't help. And so I think, well, the structures are working. We need them, but also we need to tell the women that they need to toughen up.
Okay, thank you so much. Let me move back to Brian. So, Brian, let's talk about still the affirmative action and its different policies that have been brought in place. Now, for example, when you look at the woman MP position that was brought in place, still the percentage in parliament is just 34 of women, even with the affirmative action, the woman MP position. When it comes to the direct seats, you'll see that only 16 women are in parliament under the direct seat. My issue is, why with all these policies, why do we still have a lower percentage, for example, of women taking up some of these positions? Because ideally, they should be able to, we should be able to see women compete as well in the direct seats, not just 16 women making it to parliament. Why do we have that gap?
Well, my submission is not going to be different from this. But there is one thing, Fancy, you and I know, as well as them. It's never about the numbers. It's about the energy that someone carries. Whether you give people 60 seats in parliament, let's say there were 100 seats. Whether you give 60 women seats and 40 men seats, I think provided they fail to use those seats to their added advantage, I think that's the thing. Because we may give you the seats, but again, you don't want to do the basic of being heard. You know, as you were saying, you have to be heard. You know, if Maria Matembe, for example, was in parliament, if we had Maria Matembe in parliament as a woman MP for a certain area, we had Dr. Sarah Birete as a woman MP for a certain area. We had, can you remind me the name of the lady that fought with Kamasanyo? Or she didn't pass.
Dr. Stella Nyanzi?
Yes, if we had Dr. Stella Nyanzi, Dr. Sarah Birete, we had Maria Matembe in parliament, roughly. And if Nambanja was also not, the way she's vibrant and she wasn't a prime minister and just an MP. How do you think really there wouldn't be a shake? There would be a shake because these guys are hard on. They know what is actually affecting people. However, you have again the policies again there, and now this is not only on women. Parliament has now become of the decision making. It's now an employment sector. So when someone goes there, yes, they have spoken, oh, give me the votes, this, I'm going to work on this and this, as you are saying, forgetting that some duties are off MPship, therefore, the actual guys who implement. You reach there and then you sit. You sit and, things become normal. So instead of you going there and saying, let's look at issue A is we have the issue of menstruation, maybe let's bring about policies or directives that are going to help these people, go through. Let's advocate for more spaces in the civil societies. Let's try to get the females to that stand. I think the female MPs have honestly failed to do that. Because again, you see, at the end of the day, it is the civil society organizations trying to advocate. It's the NGOs trying to advocate. It's them saying, guys, females should be respected. You have the Uganda Women's Network. You remember how they started out with the whole publicity thing, as you were saying. Give people sensitization. The ladies. Give the ladies that you're an MP. Sensitize these people. It's something patriotic, really. It's something for the benefit of. But if you go to parliament and you leave Lawel to speak, Aruho to speak, Nsumuga to speak, Musoke to speak, or Pio to speak, and because when they come to speak, yes, they're going to speak. You also don't know that these guys are aggressive. So it's the aggressive people at the end of the day that make it out. So if you're a woman, you're sitting there like, oh no, government will give me what? 1.0 points or to go to university. No, by the fact that I'm a woman, I've appeared on like 3 TV shows. No, I'm fine. They'll employ me. If that's the thinking, then I think we need to revamp the whole sensitization thing. So in a nutshell, the woman MPs, one, should go back, aside from their woman MP duties, they should go back and help sensitize the masses. Secondly, the ministries that are in charge of this now, like the Ministry of Gender, should again come back and create a whole sensitization thing, because the whole policy framework thing, as to whether it's being implemented to the core, I think we need to go back to the drawing board. And the drawing board, point number 1, comes back to the sensitization, because without sensitization, everything else just becomes basic.
Okay, thank you so much, Brian, for that. Okay. We are going to take a short break and we will come back with much more on that discussion. Stay with us.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create and publish digital media, or to access and use computers, other electronic devices and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
Welcome back from that short break. We are still with students from different universities, with Brian, Veronica, and Lawel, discussing gender mainstreaming in Uganda. We are looking at the success stories as well as the challenges and how do we move forward from that. So let's get back from where we were before the break. So I know a lot of discussions took place during the break. So Brian, let's get back to where we were. Now, my question to you is still on the numbers, because you said the numbers do not matter in Parliament. My question is, are the women, because when it comes to the position in Parliament, we have only 34% female. When you combine woman MP representatives, female national female youth, all those ones combined together, direct seats, we have only 34%. Now, my question is, have the women been financially, to start with, socially, culturally, empowered enough to compete in the direct seat and join the other 16 women to compete with men and make it to Parliament?
Well, culturally, we're on the same page, can be on the same page. I think they haven't really been empowered, because most cultures in Uganda still look at the man as the helm of the family, even to start with. Yeah. So culturally, that one I can't go in a debate. I know that one, it hasn't been done. Socially, yes, it has been done. Because socially, we have more of now
Accepted defeat.
No, I can't accept defeat, obviously. But socially, you have now a number of civil society organizations pushing females. You have now feminists coming up, pushing females, which is good. You have a number of female leaders who are now breaking the ice. For example, the current elections, I think campaigns happening at Ngulu University. I don't know whether it's Guild or Law Society, the Law Society of Ngulu University. I was looking at the number of people who are contesting, both genders. And, the women, the ladies have come out. I think there are around 2 gentlemen, 3 who are running for presidency compared to 6, because, the current Guild president is Anyama Belinda of Ngulu University. So he appointed Amanya Belinda as his vice. Now, Amanya Belinda is not a name that would be new to most of us. This is near the house.
She has been on the talk show before.
Oh, okay. That's even good. So she has, been this person who has tried to uplift. Now let's just look at Ngulu University alone. she has been this person who has tried to uplift them. That ladies, you can do this, you can do that, you can multitask. In short, so now you now have a number of people, of ladies trying to be like her to go to university, going to just looking at socially, let's look at the smaller context of now university female leaders. When you go to Makerere University, you had the story of Nawasa Shamim, you had the story of Nkunda Treslin, you had the story of Barugare Shivon Irene. These people who have tried to break the ice and show ladies that, guys, look, come on, yes, you may not be equal as men. I mean, we are different, but you can fight, you can be hard, even if it means taking that extra step. You saw that in Mob sometime back when Julia Momza contested for guild presidency. She showed that, yes, I'm a woman, I may be a nobody, but if I stand to speak, at least I'll speak and something will be done. When you go to UCU Mukono, you have people like Simalisa. She's the current guild speaker, I think, of UCU Mukono. Simalisa, she was under the regime of Mirembe Rachel Serada. So you have certain females that are actually showing people that, guys, look, you can do certain things. So socially in academic institutions, yes, I think they are being done. Outside, yes, I think they're still being done. You have Dr. Sarah Berete pushing, you have Dr. Maria Martin. That's what I'm saying. It may not necessarily be about the numbers, as I said in Parliament. You can have few people who have impact. You can have few people who are actually advocating for change. You can have few people who are helping create the sensitization. I don't believe in the whole thing of numbers. Yes, numbers don't lie, but again, you can have numbers of people who are doing nothing. For example, in Uganda, if you look at the parliament, I think we have the biggest number of MPs in East Africa. But whereas Uganda, we are always there discussing whether Nyege should happen or not, and then that takes 3 sessions. We have sessions on censuring of ministers, and then that's when you have like the biggest attendance. When it comes to serious things, the marriage and divorce bill, you remember what happened? We had a little turnout. We had the thing of was it the mining bill sometime back? And again, you had around 16, 20 MPs there, and even the ones who are there, we had like 3, 4 who are speaking. So again, yes, to certain people, they believe numbers do matter. Personally, numbers don't matter if you have silly people there. Okay, not silly. If you have people who don't really know what they're doing. So we need to have, yes, the women MPs there, fine. Now let the women MPs also push for these other ladies to show them that, guys, you don't just need to come direct as a female representative of parliament. You can contest with the men. Yes, whether the culture is against you or not, come up, take a step. That is number one, courage and determination. Come out, whether society is saying what, this woman is breaking, they all talk, that's them. People talk. But you need to look at your personal view. Can you take up the lead? Can you empower these people? Can you bring about change? If yes, fine. So culturally, yes, the culture has that one has still refused, I think, for some time. Financially, we are not yet there. Honestly, we are not yet there.
Okay. So,
because putting resources for ladies, especially during campaigns, as what we are discussing in the break, putting resources for campaigns financially for the females could be, make you end up hating the whole political thing, because you may take decisions that may be immoral. Yes, somehow, somewhere there, you have to, things happen in Uganda and Africa generally, I think, and the world. Whereas for the men, I mean, come on, I'll tell you, when I'm there in Jakusadida Yakasent. But the female won't say that, guy will be like, no, you give me this, I give you, so.
Because I've seen that come up a lot in my village. You find when a woman comes up to contest, now there are several aspects that will come out. Issues of immorality. Men, no matter how much immorality you're tied to, you will still be voted in. But for women, that will be used to break down your self-esteem completely. Do you think some of those could be the reasons we have few women competing with men?
That could be true, because we had one of the contestants, can't recall her name properly, for the presidential seat. Was it Nacha? Something? What was her name? I think she was Nacha something. I don't know if she was Nacha.
Chalia. For MP, we had Chalia.
No. For presidency. With Bobi Wine, Museveni, Mugisha Muntu.
The Msoga.
Yes.
No, that was the female we had in the previous
Chalia,
election.
the lady.
Maureen Chalia Walube.
That was the other election.
The other one, the other one. No, I'm
yes.
saying
This one
the
I
current one, the one that had Mugisha Mon to
I don't
Mukonde Museveni.
Didn't
That
have
you've known the
a
lady. I think she was from
Yeah.
that side.
She's from
I- Yes, exactly. I listened into one of her presentations. She was good. I liked her. So, obviously I didn't. But no, I didn't vote for anyone. Though, people there know my stand. But what happened is I followed one of the Twitter threads, I think, which was bad. And there is this, I don't know if I should say hopeless man or something. I don't know how people reason. We are different. This guy said, you cannot develop a country if you've even failed to make a home. That was direct on her. And I listened into her other presentations ever after that tweet was made. They totally broke her down. So if you have someone coming for presidents and that happened, trust me, no one would ever want to come back for that. You know what happened to Charlie. And actually, this woman, after her businesses, I think, were shuttered down, her buildings were demolished. So another person who wants to come for presidency will say, oh, no, we actually have a perfect example there. You saw what happened to her? No, let me come for the direct seat, women MP. Rather, I come for that. So I think we need to now first come back to Lawel's gender, our gender, and tell them, guys, I think certain things are best reserved as private. When we're having our men's conference, we can talk about them. When we come back in general public, I think certain things should, because honestly, one thing can break you. Gender, you might be good. People might, in the village, people might say, no, gender Yasoma. She's educated, she smells nice, she knows the language. When you go to the village, like, there is that sense of connectivity. Like, people feel you. Yes, they feel you. Gender can say, if I wanted to contest for MPship, I'll pass through, right? People know you've got a number of projects. But then, now you come to stand for MPship. Then people are like...
Is she married? Last time she did this.
Last time she did this. And so
But let me also ask, isn't there need for societal standards?
Yeah.
That is to say...
No, you see, now my issue is... My issue is the societal standards. There is no problem with that, but can it be applied at the same level with men?
I don't think so.
That's my issue. Can we all be subjected to the societal standard?
You see, again, it can't happen. Okay.
Why should women be subjected to the societal standards when it comes to morality and not the men?
In the Bible, even religiously, maybe before I come in, even religiously, that problem has been there. I'm not too much into religion, but
should we grow it?
No. We should actually fight
Yes,
against it.
But I am happy to really defend that. I think that society needs... the problem is that why are we have two immoral beings and one is held to a standard and the other is not?
That's my issue.
Yeah, yes. But in my view, I think given the responsibility of the women, especially in family and shaping of children and all that, I think it is very important for us to hold women to a particular standard. Because they have a primary duty of child upbringing and all that.
And men don't.
And I think, I can tell you for sure that women actually have the primary responsibility to bring up children, and that if you have two, an immoral man and a sane woman, you're likely to have a better child than the other way around. And so that a woman has more impact on the upbringing of a child than a man.
You see, Lawel, I don't want this to be a cross-examination, but I have a problem with that. That's how I want to ask. Let me ask. Any of you can feel free to respond. Now, Lawel, what makes you think that women have a primary response? Because those are some of the things that women have been pushing for when it comes to the gender equality. Why should they be given the primary responsibility? That is one. Two. You might have to give us a stronger reason, if I may put it. Why should there be a moral standard? Because you see, we might look at these things as something that is small, but it actually tears down women from taking up leadership positions, which is fundamental. Why should there be a moral standard that is set up, and then one gender is subjected to it and the other gender is not? And yet, these are both parents. They both have children, they both have responsibilities to raise children. Why should one be subjected to a moral standard and one is not?
Okay. First, so again, if we want to have fair results, that our strategies must be tied to the reality, including that of science and psychology. And you can, okay, you can all choose to deny it, but it is still going to be true that between a man and a woman, there is one who is set up naturally or even psychologically to do the grooming. And there is a lot, of course, you will say quote the data, but I can tell you for sure that the presence of a woman, a father and a mother, have different effects on a child and how they become to be. And there is a role that is played by a father, especially. So there is evidence that sons who grow up without dads are more likely to be criminals. It's a discussion in the West about blacks who grow up without fathers. Similarly, they are less likely to be strong. They're more likely to have weak mental strength because they're not brought up to, they're not hardened. And women, it's like a primary responsibility because the whole breastfeeding, taking care of, it's a primarily a women's responsibility to groom children. And well, how does it play out in the long run? How does it affect women's performance in the workplace? Those are different discussions. But honestly, the biology of it is that women have a bigger role in terms of taking care of children and behavior shaping. We can also expand that discussion as to even in the workplace. Now, I can tell you for sure, if I picked you and me and went to bargain, it's highly likely that I will pay less than a woman. And there have been experiments where you find that pink, even if it's the same helmet, pink helmets are likely to be more expensive than blue or black because pink helmets are demanded by women and they're less aggressive at negotiating. And it's highly likely that if we go to apply for a job and we are negotiating for salaries, women are more likely to be paid less because they are less aggressive at negotiation than men. Again, these are discussions we are not having, but they play both ways. There is where it enables a woman and there's where it's a disadvantage. And there's a whole bigger discussion on psychology about personalities and how women are more in terms of welfare performance than in for example, engineering. Like like women are more agreeable than they are aggressive. Okay, that's not a discussion I want us to go in because I'll confuse some of us. But the truth is that it's good if we address ourselves to this because I'm a student of psychology at some point. That's why I'm lucky to know those things. But I feel that if we get to know the reality of things, it will help us to have policies which are tied to those particular realities. And so even in politics, I can tell you, even if you have 60% lost female students and 40% male students, because the lost students, at least for our context, are the ones who are likely to be civically awake, civically competent, know their rights, you're highly likely to have most women being the bigger percentage in activism, because most ladies really are not willing to take risk, are not willing to be aggressive, are not willing to go on the street, they're not willing to be imprisoned or caned. And we can all continue to say it's how society is engineered, but you know for sure that ladies who have grown up in well-to-do families have less. They have less. The effect of patriarchy is less on them. Like they are less exposed to discrimination. But that doesn't mean that when they come to make choices, it's directly proportional. There are things that are true in terms of aggression, in terms of personalities, but that does not essentially mean that that is a reason why women should be oppressed or not accept spaces. But the truth is, there are fields where women are more likely to perform better than men, and there are fields where men are more likely to perform than women. And that's a reality. If you are a human resource manager and you're in a recruitment body, it's not only about even the performance in class. They are now what they call personality tests. So if you are overt and you speak a lot, you're more likely to be deployed in a marketing department. If you are a very quiet person in like the big multinational companies, you're not likely to get a marketing job. So there are those things. What I'm trying to say is that there are areas where the women, like their personalities are not fit for. And especially in areas that require aggression, such as even the politics of Africa, where it's aggressive, it's risky. You're more likely to have a girl child. And I can tell you, you host these shows. You're more if you are in a political party and they tell you to look for 10 ladies you can recruit, it's going to be very difficult for them to show up, even when they are empowered. Because there are few who are willing to get heads on with the aggressive state machinery. There are many factors, really. But,
Okay.
and that's what I was saying. Even at economic level, those things play out. But what I advocate for is, let us have equal opportunity, equal access. And that I should not be denied a job because I'm a woman. Or I shouldn't be denied a job because my dad is not known. But so that people should have equal access, whether to school, whether to jobs, that people should be judged based on their merit. You get the problem that is going to come is if we want to extend it to let us have equal number of female directors and male directors. That is very problematic, because then you're forced to give a woman a job not because she qualifies, but because she's a woman.
Yeah.
You get? But I also what I don't agree with is to deny that woman a job just because she's a woman. But I don't want to also give her that job just because she's a woman. And so that discussion is also important. Where do we stop with this gender mainstreaming thing? I agree to the extent that every person, whether male or female, should have an equal chance to go to school, should have an equal chance when they sit before a recruitment panel. But it's going to become dangerous if you also push that even when that layer exists, a certain gender should have equal representation in that structure. And that is why it's not going to happen in private sector, because no one is going to give you a job because of your gender.
Okay. Thank you so much, Lawel. Let me bring Veronica into the discussion. So, Veronica, out of everything that Lawel brought in place, I'm going to pick one aspect that I've constantly insisted on, is the narrative that that the female gender should be subjected to a higher standard of morality. Is that a narrative that you subscribe to?
Actually, I do not subscribe to it, but we have nothing to do. Ask me why. When you choose to go against gender mainstreaming, when you look at it, it's against culture. It is really against culture. So, unless you're like you decide that I'm going to go extremely against culture, that is when we shall have gender equality and there will be no moral standards for women. You were discussing about the issue of the numbers in parliament. There are two kinds of women. In fact, three. There is a woman who will be like, no matter what, I'll preserve culture. There is a woman who will be like, I will preserve culture, but to a limited extent. And then there's that woman who will be like, I will extremely defy culture. So the few numbers in parliament, when some women do not come up just because that is their culture. Someone still believes in culture that, okay, I'm a woman, this is still my duty. And they have no problem if someone decides that is their life. So someone decides that is, I'll preserve culture, I'll not go for this. It's still under culture about the question you've just asked. In our culture, you know it as it is, a woman is kind of the, I'll talk about the Waganda. The Waganda, I can't say Waganda, like, a woman, how you bring up yourself, how you contain yourself, brings a lot of respect to the home, regardless of what the man does. So originally in our culture, the Waganda, the man could go work, he could take alcohol and come back home falling, but people would not mind that. As long as the woman is home, respectable, upbringing the children, people would not mind that. So that was culture. So that brings us to the issue of the moral standards. Some people still have that. It is surprising to people if they see a woman getting drunk and falling on roads. They'll be like, that is home, that is someone's home, that is someone's wife. So that thing is still about culture. However much we try to fight gender equality, culture will still be there. However much we ask ourselves why are women having a high moral standard, it all goes back to culture. people will be like, a woman, no, a woman couldn't do this, a woman couldn't do this. So that is why we have a high moral standard, because it is still about culture. Tell me any feminist who has totally defied culture and to an extent of even disowning their culture names. They all have their names. Miriam, tell me. I'll talk about some artists. I'm sorry to do some artists who say they are feminists. They have their culture names. So all the people we may be looking at some extent, they are still observing culture. That is why even when we are looking at gender mainstreaming, culture is still there.
Okay.
But I think, sorry, I
yes,
think you
Lawel.
make a fair point as well. But I think it's not just about gender, it's about our general political culture. That people get away with things. The fact that MPs, like ministers, steal money and they are still reappointed. I get it. I think maybe that's a discussion for another time. But I think what we should really advocate for is that leadership should be about having a high moral standard as well, being accountable, being if you are a man, how do you treat your wives, and why doesn't society also hold you accountable when you engage in extramarital engagements? Because I don't want to take the debate far, but there was I think that must have been McCarthy also as nigger who had an extramarital scandal and he was forced to abandon their presidential ambitions. So that in the West and highly accountable societies, even faulting at individual level, your conduct, your integrity is questioned. You don't get to lead people. And that's why I was defending the other standard is I feel like it's important for mothers to be really exemplary and to be held to a higher standard because of their primary responsibility. But I don't think that's an excuse for men to get away with it. I think we generally need a society where people are integral in terms of their conduct. I think that's something I felt I needed to sort of clarify on.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll get back to Veronica. Let's talk about the other challenges. What are some of the other challenges that the fight for gender mainstreaming has faced? Aside from, I know culture has come out already. So aside from that, what are some of the other challenges that the fight for gender mainstreaming has faced?
One of the major one I will start with is that we are tending to concentrate on only one gender. We are tending to concentrate on only one gender, the females. Okay, yes, we wanted them to come up. They have come up, so we have to come up with something else to also focus on the other gender. The good thing is that there are some movements which have started caring for the boy child, some things like that. So I think one of the challenges is that whenever we talk about gender mainstreaming, people's minds run to the women, and yet it should be two-sided.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that's it for now.
Okay, let me come back to Brian still on that. So about gender mainstreaming. So what do you think are some of the gaps that have been left out to ensure that we are able to achieve what we have been pushing for a long time in gender mainstreaming?
All right, okay. I think one of the gaps to start with is the failure to differentiate between gender mainstreaming and hardcore feminism or masculinity. That is one thing that has failed to be understood. In Uganda, I don't know about other countries. In Uganda, it's one thing that has failed to be harnessed properly because these other issues may majorly come up because of that. Because if you're looking at gender mainstreaming, the major purpose of gender mainstreaming is about bringing about equality between the male gender and the female gender. That's in terms of access to opportunities, access to education facilities, health facilities, jobs, market, finances, things like that, whether political, whether cultural, whether social. Gender mainstreaming comes in the whole aspect of you and I are the same regardless of situations. How we use that to our advantage may be a question for another day. But now you're looking at a gap of people failing to understand. Well, we have a number of illiterate literates, a number of literates who think they know it all and yet they have misunderstood it. He said before in the earlier submissions, there is the whole aspect of people now coming up calling themselves feminists. I'm not against feminism, and neither am I against the whole inclusion, but I'm against people. I'm in for female empowerment and not feminism, because the two have been differentiated. Again, it comes back to the gender mainstreaming. You have a number of ladies who think they have made it there, and now they're around 40 years going up. They're happily married, they have a man, they have children, they have a job, and they've tried to make this whole thing look, instead of gender mainstreaming now, it has gone beyond that. It's, as you are saying, that extent has been broken. It's now into feminism. Now they're preaching to the young girls who are still in university that, oh, you don't need a man to, to make it there. Yet they are married. So now you have a scope of young, illiterate university girls coming up with the whole thing of, oh, I can make it without a man, I can make it without society, things like that. I just need my circle of girls. And yet that's not the reality, because at the end of the day, I think the gender mainstreaming thing is to bring us all into the whole aspect. Because yes, you may be a female, social media is lying to you that you're making it, your CV is looking great, your girls are pushing you. At the end of the day, you're going to come back to the back. Because if it wasn't that, I was interacting with a certain friend of mine during the festive season. She's a hardcore feminist. She's not into gender mainstreaming. Asking her, who drove you to your village? Said, my dad's car. Like, fine. When you reach the village, did you mind telling your dad that you don't need a man to survive, and then you see how you come back? Oh, tell your mom, tell your grandmother that, me, I'm not dissectable. I'm female. I'm female. Everything about me is female. I'm advocating for their rights. I don't need a man to survive. Let's see how you come back. Or who pays for your tuition? So, like my dad. In case you got a car, some of these things, it's just about breaking down, coming back to the reality. Gender, if you had a car, highest chances is that if it broke down in town, you're going to get your phone and call this mechanic who is a man. That's at the end of the day. So you're going to break the whole notion of, oh, I don't need a man for success. But you're running to maybe to NTV or CCG, you have a talk show there, you're hurrying to, advocate for females' rights. But when your thing breaks down, you're going to call that guy. A young one, you might, add on a number of insults, to make him speed up, to get that border chap and come and work on your car, on your road to success. After that, you're going to jump on a border which highest probability might be ridden by a man to your road to success. Again, at the end of the day, it's about cooperation. So one, that gap has failed to be done, to be brought in. Secondly, the gap of sensitization. I think the ministry is in charge of that, as you said before. The Ministry of Gender has really played a very minimal part. I think ministries should take up their respective, stands, especially Ministry of Gender, and come up and do this whole sensitization program thing again. Then thirdly, our members of parliament, the representatives, whether, apart from the MPs, also looking at the LCs. I think the female leaders that are in spaces, congratulations to them. But I think now they also need to look at the aspect of, talking about equality, as well as bringing these people now on board, because yes, they are retired, they must really retire, and we have new faces. Because with new faces, you have new ideas. But then at the end of the day, I think the male gender and the female gender should work hand in hand correspondingly. Thank you.
We have run out of time, and I'll let the panel give their concluding remarks, but most importantly is to feature solution part of it. So how do we move forward in terms of gender mainstreaming? I'll start with Lawel.
Yeah, I think first of all, there needs to be sort of massive redefinition and like people getting to understand what feminism is. I feel that most people don't understand it, because when he was saying empowerment, feminism, like, but what's the difference? Maybe there are those radical ones who have run away with it and tried to redefine it in the wrong way. But I think feminism in its true sense should be a good thing. So I think there should be like a massive redefinition. Two, I think it's not essentially true that you have a society that is waiting, the two sides waiting to strangle each other. Men are hunting women and women are hunting men. I think, like I said, these two are working together to create a better society, and that should be reinforced. Of course, there are some men who are really too aggressive and disrespectful and abusive and all that. But I don't think we should continue to teach our young girls that men are rapists, men are out there. I have met some radical feminists at law school, and I don't think it's good to teach our people that way, that society is that hostile. But last thing, I don't know if we can have a mechanism of how to evaluate or to like evaluate. For example, if we have women positions of leadership, if we have we need like a body that assesses those gender mainstreaming initiatives to like follow up and say this is how far they have scored on this card, and that if, for example, we have said this is a strategy to have women in this particular sector, or we have women members of parliament, there should be a mechanism to evaluate to what extent these are performing, and then maybe that mechanism can guide policy. Or you get, I don't think it's enough for you to send people to represent women and they're not doing anything, and that is not being evaluated. It is not, we're not having a retrospective discussion of how to reinforce them or whether to change that strategy. I don't find it there. It's only in small aspects like universities, and they're also not as active. So we need a mechanism to evaluate the extent to which these gender mainstreaming strategies and policies are working, even at national level.
Okay, thank you. Veronica?
The gender mainstreaming implementations which were brought forward have really worked, but however, generations change, and now we're in the 21st century. So I feel there is need to come up with new implementation, to come up with new measures, as we have all been discussing the problems of gender mainstreaming, the high moral standards, the few numbers. Why is this all coming up? Is because, yeah, we have the gender equality or the gender mainstreaming solutions or measures which were put forward. But however, these have won out. That's why we still have these issues we are discussing right now. That's why we are sitting here discussing about it. So I feel there is need to implement new measures. The ones we had are now worn out. Now we have to sit again and discuss what else should we do? What new measures do we have to bring about gender mainstreaming? I think that will bring us to what we want, the gender equality.
Okay, Brian?
One, ladies and gentlemen should respect one another, whether in workspaces, family, socially, culturally, politically. That's one thing that needs to be done. Secondly, we need to have a massive resensitization of people about different aspects. Feminism, female empowerment, because those seem to be very critical discussions in this generation. And then also the aspect of gender mainstreaming, because at the end of the day, it doesn't make sense advocating for one gender and leaving one gender out. That's what has happened in the West, and has had ripple effects, because now you have men that have been left out. They aren't being helped even mentally to come back to the original version of a gentleman. However, they've gone hostile, and now you're having issues of mass shootings, you have rape, you have funny things like that. Why? Society is more at the point of view that we are looking at the female empowerment, the feminism, vis-a-vis living the other male gender. So we should have a restimulation of sensitization. Thirdly, different governments, especially the one of Uganda, should come back to the core of bringing these people on table and bringing about new ways to harness this whole thing. Not only looking at laws, yes, because the laws have been put into place. Not only looking at the laws, but now making it more of an open policy framework. Breaking it from the eyes of elites in Kampala. Let's go to Soroti. Let's go to Karamoja. Let's go deep down to Bushenyi. Let's move to the east. Let's get down to the ground, and now we begin a whole branding from the lower grass, because then you have the elites this side who understand or who try and align to the nation that they understand about the issues, and then you also have a new generation of people that you are training mentally. That's all.
Okay, thank you so much. We have come to the end of the talk show for today. Thank you so much, Brian, Veronica, and Lawel, for gracing our invitation and having this very beautiful discussion. It's a topic I'm personally very passionate about. People ask me, why are you called gender? I also ask my dad, why am I called gender? I was told around that time there were a lot of gender issues. Women were pushing to make sure that they are represented. Women were pushing to make sure that they are represented at every level, every single law that was coming up. Women were pushing at that time.
That kind of naming is typical of Vanyanko.
I know. So it's a topic that I also grew up to be passionate about, and I think the discussion has been very enjoyable, and thank you to the panel. Thank you so much, Center for Constitutional Governance and Civic Space TV, for gracing this and organizing the inter-university debate and giving students a platform to discuss these issues that are very, very important and they affect our society. Thank you so much to the viewers for watching. Feel free to let us know your view on gender mainstreaming, the challenges and success. Feel free to put it on the comment section, take it on social media, tag Civic Space TV and CCG, and let us know, put your voice out there so that we know what you think. And it is our hope that such views reach the ears of the policymakers. See you again next week, same time.